Hi, I'm Chris Cluney. Believe it or not, today's Main Street story actually takes place right here on Main Street in Amesbury, lower Main Street, but we're here at Hawkswood. For those people familiar with the history of Amesbury, the name Hawkswood conjures up visions of a stately Gothic Victorian mansion, elegant ladies in long dresses at leisure on a summer afternoon. Today, the word Hawkswood brings to mind a different set of pictures. In some ways, very different, and in some ways, surprisingly similar to the original Hawkswood concept. Why don't we go inside and find out what's going on here at Point Shore at Hawkswood? We're going to be talking to Kevin Saber, who is the boss, the developer, the head man around here. Kevin, we want to thank you for spending time with us, allowing us to come in and see all of this. You spent a lot of time showing us around. We appreciate it very much. We're right in Kevin's office now. Kevin, if I asked you, if this were a contest, to describe Hawkswood in 25 words or less, what is Hawkswood?
Hawkswood is probably the most dramatic condominium project in New England at this point. It's 18 units on 10 acres of land that we've developed in what we feel is an environmentally responsible way, and that's what sets us apart, I think, from anything else out in the market.
You win. That was great. Tell us how you personally got involved in this project.
Well, the project began probably a year and a half ago when my brother found the land. He spent a lot of time driving around looking at various pieces of land. He fell in love with this, and it was interesting. He told my dad about it. My dad at the time, he really didn't want to get involved in a project, and we'd gone to play golf, and on the way back, everybody was tired. Rick was driving. He drove us down here. We came out, we took one look at the land, and we all fell in love with it. And the rest is essentially history. We've gone from there and taken the property through the various boards in town, got our approvals, and we're now at a point where we're in construction. Okay.
The time frame so far, how long has it taken you from the time that Rick brought you over and showed you the land to where we are right now?
It's been about a year. We spent probably a good 6 months of that time negotiating on the property and taking it through the various boards. And we really didn't start the project until November, when we went and started architecturals. This spring we came in and started doing the groundwork, and in about the past 3 or 4 months we've gone to the point of doing the site work to construction. So it's been about a year at this point.
Okay. When we were here last, you told us about some changes that have been made from your original concept of Hawkswood to the way it is now, or the way it will be. Can you tell us about that? Why the changes were made? And I think you have some things to show us too.
Yes, I can go step down and show you. The original concept was 18 units in the price range of around $150,000 to $180,000. At the time, we had roadways coming in front of the units down along the water, and a lot of different things that we've chosen to change in the interim. So we went from this design to a second design. And this was the next concept of Hawkswood. Very much a contemporary design. You'll notice the angular and the peaked entranceways, everything pretty much symmetrical. We tested the market with this and found out that folks wanted something a little bit more traditional. So we went from this to this design here. And we've narrow tucked the garages and the roadways all in the back. Added solariums, added a lot of glass, and made it very much reminiscent of what was here 100 years ago in terms of solariums and a lot of stonework, woodwork, a lot of glass. All the windows, for instance, are wood inside and out, which is something you really don't see anymore. And we've gone and made a lot of changes that we feel have enhanced the property and made it a very elegant project.
And this is the way the units will appear now, or are there changes still to be made? This is it?
This is the way the units will appear on the riverside, and I have a plan showing the roadside. You want to take a look at the plan? We've gone to a very traditional front here. Very,
these windows.
very elegant entrance foyer. 2 stories of glass. You come in, there'll be a gorgeous heavy wood door with glass side lights, a rectangular piece of glass with a round top up above, all broken up into small panes. Some of the garages are flat roof, others are peaked with cupolas. We have chimneys on the front now, and when you look at the side elevation, you'll notice there are 2 chimneys on each of the units. Again, to break up the roof line and add a lot of excitement to the design.
And these changes were not ones that you necessarily decided on yourself. This was something that someone else told you to do.
This was based on market research. We did an extensive market research project for the development. And what came back, what we did was we sent out photographs of the original front side and roadside, or front side and riverside, to people who fit the profile of what we were looking at. Essentially people that bought in the waterfront in the past year, $200,000, $250,000 units and up. We talked to them and they told us essentially this is what they like.
This is what'll go.
So we've made our adjustments to fit the market, and all indications at this point are we've hit it. The first building is sold out and we're off and running on the next one.
Great. These are condominiums. Condominiums by definition are
shared piece of property, and each individual unit owner will own the structure that they're in. They don't own any of the ground underneath it. They don't own any of the ground outside of their units. Everything is shared by the association, which means you get one tax bill for the land, and the unit owners will get a separate tax bill for their individual piece of property.
Okay, and you decided to do this kind of housing as opposed to other forms that are...
For a number of reasons. We could have gone with the single-family housing, for instance, and it would have been a very lucrative project financially. Had we done that, we would have been in a situation where we would have had to come in and tear up the entire site. With a 10-acre site here, and our whole reason for getting into the development business was essentially to create or to move into a new market niche that we feel is out there that you would term essentially an environmentally responsible developer. We've gone in, instead of stripping 10 acres of land and putting houses everywhere, we've been able to position everything along the river and leave the vast majority of the land open. So the people who will be living here can enjoy it, and future generations can enjoy the open space. That was our primary reason for going to a cluster, a condominium development, as opposed to single family.
Condominium also sometimes implies services that go along with, as opposed to living in an apartment or owning a single family.
One of the nice things here is that folks will be able to have access to the river, and we're looking at putting in a docking situation with individual moorings. Oftentimes you'll go into a development and you'll find pools and tennis courts and a lot of other things. We received town approval for all of those things, but based on our market research, 2 things became very clear. Number one, the people in this market aren't interested in having pools and tennis courts on the property because it attracts oftentimes a lot of noise. And the second thing is that the market research indicated it wasn't a high priority item because it drives up the condo fee. And with only 18 units on such a large site, you have to be careful of letting that fee rise too high. So in an effort to keep it down, we've eliminated some of the things. We've added the one thing that people really want, and that's boating in a docking situation.
Right. Kevin, I think we've spent enough time in the office. It's time to go outside and see what's going on here. So we will join you outside. Thanks a lot for showing us all of this.
I think you'll like what you see.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, we're looking right now at some of the outside work that's being done. Can you tell us about, especially the rock problem?
The rock situation here was interesting. We had 25,000 cubic yards of ledge that we had to move originally. And the original thinking was to take it and push it with the bulldozer into a bowl we have at the bottom of the hill here by the drive. We worked with a landscape architect, and he felt very strongly that one of the most dramatic views was some of the ledge off to the side. So we decided to take the rock and truck it to the top. That pine tree you're looking at is what I would call a good example of how we've tried to respond sensitively to the environment. It would have been very easy to truck the rock straight up past that pine tree and take that to the top that way. Had we done that, we would have lost the tree. So instead we trucked it around the site. The truck was probably 4 times as long, 4 times as costly. But by doing so, we were able to save that tree, which will ultimately give scale to the site and be a benefit for the people living here in future generations. And that's what we mean by essentially being irresponsible to the environment and environmentally responsible developers.
Okay, 2 things that you just talked about. First of all, what are you going to do with the stuff that you moved out of here? You're not going to put it down in the bowl. You are going to put it up top. And you were telling us when we were here before that that serves another purpose as well.
It certainly does. It helps to act as a sound barrier. Our property is 10 acres large, and it runs to Route 95. By putting that rock up there, not only will it break the sound for this particular project, but it will break the sound for all of our neighbors on Point Shore.
That brings me to my next question. A lot of people, especially here on Point Shore, the words condo and development have become buzzwords, and you were telling us before that you've had no problem with people who have objected in the past to projects in this vicinity. Tell us about that, please.
I think oftentimes developers, and especially condominium developers, run into a lot of opposition from the neighborhood, and those certainly are buzzwords. I think in this particular case, the Hawkswood estate at Point Shore has become a buzzword for a high-quality, low-density, environmentally responsible development, and because of that, we have a lot of support from our neighbors. They just had a block party this past weekend, for example. Not only did they invite our family.
Oh, I missed it.
You missed the block party.
I missed it.
They also invited some of the new folks moving in, so it was a chance for these people to meet the neighbors.
What a great idea.
It was a lot of fun.
Good. Tell us now, while we're looking at outside at some of the people actually working here, you have assembled quite a team to work on Hawkswood. Can you tell us about the members of that team?
Certainly. It's a team that we're very proud of. We have an architect who has done a number of condominium developments in the past, and he's the type of architect that will really let the land create the building as opposed to imposing the building upon the land. We've worked with a local engineer, Cameron Engineering here in Amesbury, and our team includes the architect, architectural design concepts out of Bradford, and the architect there is Butch Razak. He worked along with an architect from Boston on the design stage. My brother-in-law helped with the design, especially on the Riverside. Our engineer is a local engineer, Woody Camp here from Amesbury, who's been a great help in guiding us through the local boards and helping to work with what has to be one of the tougher sites because of all the ledge and the problems that you encounter with ledge. The bank is a family bank out of Haverhill, and they've done a lot of work in this area, and they're very high on the area in Amesbury in particular.
You've got some more family members on this team, I know.
I want to tell you about a couple other members.
Okay.
One is the lawyer. The legal work is being done by Armin Hyatt, who lives down here on Point Shore. And the market research, which was an integral part of the project, was done by Sibley Associates. And one of the other members of the team is, and probably one of the more important members, has been the market research people, which a lot of developers to date haven't really added to their team, and that's John Sibley of Sibley Associates in Andover. Probably the most important member of our entire team, and one of the people we're proudest to have with us is Frank Todd, who's our landscape architect out of Raleigh. Frank has won all sorts of environmental awards for his projects. His attitude is to, in theory, is to go in, and when you're done, make it look as if the land has been that way for 100 years.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there because Frank is going to show us just what you're talking about. Kevin, you were telling us about the landscape architect.
The landscape architect has had more control on this site probably than a developer has ever given a landscape architect. He has total veto power over anything that goes on here, and he's taken it seriously. He's gone and asked us to redesign the site, and we did. We redesigned and resubmitted our site plan for review. He's gone and worked with some of the natural things we have on the site. We have a gorgeous piece of ledge out on the front entrance, which you may get a chance to see later on. He's reclaimed that ledge, exposed that ledge, and it now is a backdrop for what is a very dramatic entranceway. He's gone along the river, and instead of knocking down every tree in sight, he's thinned out some trees, which will allow him to wait until the buildings go up, go inside the buildings, and then selectively cut branches or prune a tree here and there. The ultimate effect will be a development where there's a tremendous amount of trees. We haven't impacted the development more than is necessary. And what I ultimately believe will be something that the market will respond favorably to, and all indications are that it has. It's something that people respect nowadays.
Right, it's very important.
And Frank is probably what I feel is the best person at that at this point.
Good. There were some other team members. Have you covered the whole team?
No, we haven't. I haven't touched upon the family yet.
Oh, good.
We're very much a family affair. The partners, the general partners, are myself and my father, and we have members of the family who are working in various capacities here. My sister Deborah Saba-Tomaszewski is a marketing coordinator. She's been responsible for selling the units and has done a great job with it so far. She sold the first building when we've had nothing but a pile of rock. My brother Rick is on site working with us. He's a labor foreman, and he's in charge of making sure that all the things get done that need to get done to make a successful project.
The family members of your team.
The last family member that I haven't mentioned is my mother, who spends a tremendous amount of time coming here and helping to keep everything together. She's helping us with the books, she helps us with the marketing, and she makes sure that things go smoothly. The other person is our supervisor, George Jenkins, out of Canton. George is chairman of his town planning board, and we've assembled essentially people who really respect what we're doing with the environment, and you can see it. Everybody from the architects to our super understands our concept of being high quality, low density, low impact on the land. And that's why we've assembled these people. And they've done what I think you'll see is a very good job of it. They've positioned the buildings close to the river so that you have a tremendous amount of open space in front of you without adversely impacting the environment, and left everything to the back of the site open. And that will again remain as open space for the condo associates and for future generations to enjoy.
Terrific. We're going to go take a look around now, see what there is to see. Things at Hawkswood have changed just a little. This is one of the Hawkswood ladies whose name is
Mary Hagen.
And you're not at leisure. You're working here. What are you doing?
Right now I'm doing strapping. I do a variety of things, whatever needs to be done.
This is a relatively unusual place to find ladies. Why are you here? What about this job brought you here?
Well, carpentry is something I've wanted to try for a long time and never have, and I thought it'd be a good time to do it this summer and try it out. I've been working with Tony Catali since the spring, and I'm really enjoying it.
So you think this is something you'll stick with?
Yeah, for a while, definitely.
Thank you very much for talking to us. Now you can go back to work.
As I mentioned earlier, how the landscape architect came through and did a rough cut. Now as the buildings go up, he'll come out onto the decks, into the windows, and he'll selectively prune and cut individual branches off of trees instead of taking whole trees down, to save as much of the natural cover as possible and have as little impact out here as we can. You'll notice there's a dead tree out there. That will be coming down. Some of the branches off of a tree like this might come down. But in the end, what we'll have is a situation where it's aesthetically pleasing from the unit as well as to the neighbors who are looking at us from the other side. One of the nice things you'll see here is we've cut a nature trail. We have 1,250 feet of riverfront, and the trail runs along the river, and people can then, for instance, after an evening stroll, walk along the back of the property. That stroll will be almost a mile long. We've tried very hard to work with nature, to save as much as we can, and to accentuate what's out there and make it more prominent. You'll notice that all the buildings are positioned along the river. You're almost on a peninsula here, and each building is on a different side of that peninsula. As you look down, you'll see the end of this first building. You might spot workmen down there who are at the beginning of building 2. The next building starts on the other side of the peninsula, and the last one runs down toward the bridge. Every unit has a different view because of the differing elevations and the differing position of the building on the site. The views here are they really are dramatic, and they're ever-changing.
We're outside now at what we have been referring to all along as the bowl. Kevin's going to explain to us about what's going on out here.
Chris, right over your shoulder is the bowl and the ledge, and really is a piece of the property that we're proudest about. We've gone through a number of changes on this piece of property. We've changed the site plan a couple of times. We changed the direction of the project because of that a couple of times. Originally, I mentioned earlier that we were blasting and moving 25,000 cubic yards of ledge. It was all going to be going in here. We're going to grade up and over, and you would have had a big mountain as you entered. The landscape architect came on, felt very strongly that it was a type of natural setting that we can reclaim and make very prominent on the site and for the entranceway. So he did that. So we pulled out all the ledge that we had put in there, trucked it to the top, and gave the landscape architect the opportunity to create a bowl and a natural swale situation and really expose that ledge. About 2 weeks ago, he came back to me and he said, "Kevin, do you have any more of that ledge?" And I said, "Frank, the ledge has pretty much been moved to the top. What would you like to do with it?" He said, "Well, I'd like to put a little of it back into the hole." So we went out and we found some more ledge, which isn't too hard to do around here, brought it back in, and if you look to my left, you'll see an area that, as you're coming out of the site, it creates very much a bowl effect. As you're coming into the site, the illusion is different. It starts at an angle and cuts down, and at the point where you get the best view of the ledge, it opens up, so it all exposes itself to you. At any rate, we brought the ledge back down. I'm just waiting for him to ask me to take some of it out again.
And you will?
I'll do it 5 more times for him.
Okay, we're just about finished up here. There are a few more questions that I have of Kevin. First of all, something that we haven't talked about, you're working on this project now. Do you foresee a time when it's going to be finished?
I certainly hope so. At this point, it looks like we're projecting occupancy on the first 2 units, the buildings that are framed that we walked through earlier, somewhere around mid-October or early November. And I expect that the first building will be ready for its occupants probably the end of the fall. So that's what we're working on now. We had originally looked at doing the second building in the spring, but because the first building is sold out, we're essentially moving on to that next phase now. It looks like we can be finished with this project sometimes next spring as opposed to fall of '86, which is what we were originally projecting.
When we were inside earlier, Kevin was telling us about the team that has been assembled to work on this project, family members and other members of the team, but one person that he forgot to tell us about was himself. Kevin, you didn't get away. I want you to tell us about your background and your involvement here.
Well, this is our first development type project. It's my first involvement with development. I'm an attorney by trade. I do a lot of political consulting. I've traveled the country twice doing presidential campaigns. I've run a number of campaigns in Massachusetts, ran the congressional race in the 5th District last year. So this is somewhat different from politics and certainly different from law.
This team that you have assembled, it seems to be working out very well, and you all, from the sounds of it, are getting along well when Hawkswood itself is completed. Do you think this team will stay together and try something else?
It's interesting. Originally we had come in and we were moving in a different direction, thought we'd get into development. And since we started this project, we found that what we felt was a niche in the market and a need for essentially environmentally responsible development, maintaining open space, leaving a lot of green space, is a feeling that a lot of people have. And we've been approached since we've been in here by people who've seen what we've done and like what we've done, who themselves own sensitive pieces of land. They've come to us and asked us to take a look at their land. They've thought about it in the past, but have felt uncomfortable with just turning it over to any developer because the land oftentimes has been in the family for generations and really is a part of the family. So it's a nice feeling to know that people respect what we're doing and have come to ask us to take a look at that land, and we are taking a look. So there's a good chance that we'll be doing other projects in the area in the future.
That sounds very exciting. It would be something to look forward to, I'm sure. I want to thank you for spending a lot of time with us, and we would hope that you would let us come back when it's finished so we can take a look at the finished product. We thank you and the whole crew for letting us come here. Originally, this land was known as Gunner's Point or Gunner's Nose. When Reverend Fletcher bought it, he named the estate that he was building Hawkswood. Hawkswood after the fish hawks that nested in the trees along the river. And those fish hawks are also known as osprey. The architect for Hawkswood was Rufus Sargent, Newburyport native. Reverend Fletcher was a writer, a naturalist. He was also an ambassador to the legation in Rio and also in Portugal. He sold the house to a man named Hughes, who taught astronomy to his daughters in the towers of the old house. Mr. Hughes sold the land and the house to the Wallaces. The Wallaces did some renovation in the house, and included in that renovation was the installation of a refrigeration system in the basement. The refrigerator held 2 tons of ice. They were known for their lavish parties. People all along the North Shore were well aware of the parties that the Wallaces had. They had lawn parties, and there was a pheasant house on the property. Caged animals, the animals in the cages were stone. The Wallaces then sold the house to Mr. True, who put in a boatyard here, and he in turn turned the property over to the Thomases. Mrs. Thomas abandoned the castle and moved to the lodge, which is now the home of the de Greniers. The castle itself was razed in 1953 after having been almost completely destroyed by vandals. The original concept at Hawkswood was to make use of the land as it existed. Reverend Fletcher and his architect worked very carefully on that, as the Sabas are doing today. One of the earlier visitors to Hawkswood had this to say in a letter to a friend: "Having selected the fittest spot on which to build, Mr. F. has not cramped and forced nature into accommodation to his ideas, but has consulted her and shaped his plans to her peculiarities." This is Chris Cluney. Frank Gurczak and I have spent quite some time here today at Hawkswood. We thank Kevin for letting us come visit with him, and we thank you for joining us, and hope that we will see you again next time on Main Street.